Hello and welcome to STARCAST from Planet Waves. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, the author of Planet Waves Horoscope, the host of Planet Waves FM, and counseling astrologer at your service. Today's edition of STARCAST is for Thursday, the 12th of October, 2023. This is the Thursday edition that goes with the weekly horoscope and the weekly article distributed on Planet Waves and Substack and elsewhere. Thank you for joining me wherever you may be in the world in the future or in your state of mind. This is the last STARCAST ahead of the October 14th annular solar eclipse. I'll have perhaps a little more to say on tomorrow's Planet Waves FM, but probably not that much. I'd like to get it into, concentrated into this discussion. I've got plenty else to talk about beside the rising tide on Planet Waves FM, which has been off for a couple of weeks and now resumes. This edition, my plan is to, if I can find my notes, I think I've got a couple here, maybe I'll use them, I'm going to take a couple of different approaches. One is just generally speak of eclipses, and then also to talk about where this eclipse fits into the pattern of recent eclipses, particularly those that impact and influence and affect the United States of America, because this one cuts a swath from Oregon through the southwest of the United States. Also will be visible in some way from Mexico and parts of Central America. But it is an annular eclipse, which means that the moon is going to be a little bit smaller than the disk of the sun. And so these are not as dramatic as when suddenly daytime turns to night and all the animals act weird and all that kind of thing, and they act like it's nighttime. But it may still be quite a thing to behold from certain points of view. Unlike lunar eclipses, which are visible anywhere the moon is visible, solar eclipses have a path of totality or a path of annularity. In this case, it's an annular eclipse. And again, that means that the moon is at aphelion. It's far away from the Earth, and so it appears to be slightly smaller. And therefore, while it aligns exactly with the sun, it's a little too small to cover the whole disk of the sun. Over the eons, the moon slowly drifts away from the Earth. With each orbit, it moves, I don't know how many inches further out. And so eventually there'll come a time when all total eclipses are annular. But the interesting thing is that we are conscious of eclipses in the time when there are, in fact, total eclipses. So kind of at the end of that era, too, I'm sure that all these annular eclipses were total eclipses, a million years ago. That's not much that's going to affect us, but just saying that we have we're kind of like the last epoch of people who will have this view of total eclipses. Again, this is not one. This is an annular eclipse. Now, generally speaking, eclipses represent what I think of as being kind of spiritual checkpoints. They're pass-through points, kind of like a toll plaza, but the toll plaza is more like a venturi. That's a device that used to be in a thing that used to be called a carburetor. Old cars still have them. New cars don't. They have fuel injection. But the venturi is a thing in the carburetor that the entire principle of the carburetor is based on, which is that a mixture of air and gasoline is introduced into a little tube that gets narrower for a while, and in that narrowing there is an acceleration, and the fuel is volatilized, and it then is put into combustible form. And it is that narrowing of the way that I think of as having the property of an eclipse. So I use the term the Venturi effect, and I've linked to my article from late 2020, that dark time, called the Venturi effect, which explains this idea and also some of the other principles that I've developed over the years of getting to know eclipses. I once wrote in 1999, when I was a fairly young astrologer, I'd been at it maybe for 5 years, eclipses are astrology that we cannot deny. It's an astronomical event. Most people don't see them. It's not about that. It's about the sensation of something happening. And so keeping the Venturi effect in mind, we'll go through those. Let's go while I'm on this. Then I'll talk about the 2017 and 2024 events. Sorry for interrupting. So keeping the Venturi effect in mind, eclipses represent a concentration of experience. Things life seems to be more packed, more rich in the sense of fuel rich, that there's a thicker mixture of existence, and that can come with the sensation of having a little bit more than you can handle. There's also an acceleration of events. Things move more quickly, like that air and water mixture moving through the Venturi speeds up. Things can also seem karmic or predestined. I'm not saying that they are. They might be. They might not be. But they feel that way. That's the important thing to recognize. This is a sensation. This is how things feel. Eclipses also come with a sense of discontinuity. There's a before and after effect of eclipses. That life is one way before the eclipse, and then it's a certain way after the eclipse. And this might be too subtle for many people to notice. It might be blatantly obvious, where there's something that just marks that period and marks the beginning or the end of an era. So that sense of discontinuity, and in a way that might seem to be contrary to that, or not really though. There's a pattern-setting quality, which is why you want to make your life as much like you want it to be around the time of an eclipse. Now, sometimes these things happen when people are at work or in the middle of the night, but I'm saying generally around the time of the eclipse. Yeah, sure, if possible that day, that hour, whatever, but also around the epicenter. So starting now, guide your life to be as much like you want it to be as you can. There's something about making decisions by taking action. Most people think decisions are a thing that you do in your mind, which is possible. You resolve to do something or something, but the decision is not really consummated until it is acted on. Choices made by altering your behavior, by altering your approach, by altering your reality, your schedule, the organization of your home, something real, tangible. And so the more real and tangible you can make your decisions, the more likely they are to stick. But also you want to work with the pattern setting property of eclipses. And so that means that if you want to paint more, then paint right now. Paint during this phase, particularly this weekend, and then leading into the next eclipse, which is the full moon eclipse in Taurus on the 28th, 2 weeks from Saturday. And use this pattern setting quality. All right. So that's the basic 1, 2, 3 of eclipses as I have conceived of it. This is a rare eclipse that crosses the American continent. The first one that really did so was in 2017. Apart from 2017, there was like a little one that clipped across the Northeast, like up by Maine, or maybe nipped across by Oregon or something. But the first eclipse to have its path across the United States was what was at the time being called the Great American Eclipse of 2017. And this was a really, really strange time in American history. 2017 was a year where there were just absolutely radical changes. I want to give you an idea of what was going on in the beginning of 2017. I love this audio. This is like one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my entire life. This is what was going on at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. I had a reporter down there who took this audio. And that was the attitude of young people in early 2017. That would be January 21st, 2017, the day after the inaugural day. The Women's March was big in D.C. and big in New York. The vibe was incredible. I caught the end of it in New York just as it was breaking up, and it was ecstatic. It was one of those moments where New York City just is a happy place. By the end of 2017, starting in October, suddenly all men were potentially Harvey Weinstein. And I find that to be troubling, but I also find it to be evidence of the power of eclipses, and in this case, an eclipse that visually divided the United States, cutting a line from Oregon southeast to the Carolinas and then heading out to sea from there, right? Entering in the Pacific Northwest, shooting across the country at the speed of a jet airliner, and then going out to sea and then disappearing over the Atlantic. Suddenly, at the end of that year, just 3 months after the August of 2017 eclipse, was the most horrendous episode in the contrived war between the sexes in the United States. And this went on for a year and a half. It was nothing but toxic. I don't think this helped anyone. I don't think it helped any victims. I don't think it stopped any perpetrators. I don't think it changed any behavior whatsoever. I think it was purely divisive. What happened to all those young men? Who were they chanting "her body, her choice"? So those guys, I don't know. I didn't meet them all, but they all sounded pretty sincere to me. Well, what happened? All right. So now we have another eclipse that is going across the United States, this time from the Pacific Northwest on a sharper southeasterly angle across Texas and out to the Gulf of Mexico. This is the annular of 2023. That's the one that happens on Saturday in Libra. Then in 2024, on April the 8th, that would be with the sun in Taurus, I'm pretty sure. I sometimes can't think on my feet when I'm doing this. There is another eclipse, this one that goes from Texas northeasterly up through Maine, and so one makes a stripe from the northwest down to Texas, and the other one makes a stripe from Texas up to the northeast. So this is 3 eclipses in very close proximity that make long pathways across the American continent visible from the American continent. Now, personally, I find eclipses to be so powerful, I kind of like to stay away from them. They have all the power they need without me staring up at the thing. I could. I mean, who knows? The one in 2024 kind of comes right near my house. I got to drive 6-8 hours to get to see it somewhere. I might do that, but generally, I don't really feel drawn to the path of an eclipse. I take a look at a lunar eclipse for a few minutes. Very nice. If it's right near me, okay. If I can see it. If it's not cloudy. Meanwhile, we're going to have millions of people looking at this. Now, that may be a necessary thing. It may be helpful. It may be that the added transformational power of the eclipse, which I think is clearly enhanced by staring at the thing, will provide a point of acceleration that many, many people need to have. Almost everyone's growth is stuck right now, whether it's stuck because they refuse to do anything, it's stuck because we are so enmeshed in necessities and responsibilities and not having any time for this bullshit growth stuff, or because the very concept of growth, of personal progress, of personal evolution has basically been eliminated as a thing. That's the best way to stop something, is just eliminate it as a thing. And one of the reasons why it's been eliminated as a thing is because experience now has been taken outside of us. The inner trip has now been projected largely into the synthetic astral plane called the internet. And so when experience is projected, when experience is cast out outside of oneself. It can therefore not be owned. It cannot be internalized. It cannot be used, worked with, taken to heart. It's someone else's. It's something else's. It has nothing to do with you. This is the crisis of a world where everything is cast off and cast away, and that is, on one level, the very essence of the internet's quality of disembodiment is projection. It's not about the best downward-facing dog in the world. You can do that, but it does not mean that you are in possession of your material. The embodiment is not about the body itself. The property of embodiment that I'm talking about is owning the totality of your experience, including your body, including your choices, including whatever it is that you may go through. Now, looking more closely at this particular eclipse, there is, it has quite a bit to do with projection. And I say that because the main, like the backbone of this eclipse is, let me see if I can find this chart. I need a program called Preview. Can we have more computers with more programs on them? Hold on, I don't want to waste time. Let me find it. All right, there it is, behind 12 things. The main backbone of this eclipse, like many things these days, spans from Libra to Aries. The eclipse is the new moon in Libra. The new moon is the alignment of the moon with the sun. The sun's in Libra, therefore, and the south node of the moon is in Libra. Therefore, when the sun gets near the south node of the moon and the moon gets near the sun and then the south node, that is how you know there's an eclipse coming. If you're wondering what these things in the chart called the nodes are, the first way to take it is on a practical level. On the level of, that's where eclipses happen. So this eclipse happens about 3 degrees off of the south node, and it, it would be total. It's very close to the node. It would be total were it not annular, were the moon not just a little bit too small. All right, so also right in that neighborhood is Mercury. Mercury is about 4 degrees away from the moon and the sun. That counts. It is right there. And Mercury is highlighted because it is exactly opposite Chiron. Mercury is at 17 degrees 11 minutes, and Chiron is at 17:31. So Chiron is about distinction. It is about a maverick quality of doing one's own thing. It also has other elements in the scenario that include mentorship. Chiron was famously, more than he was a physician, he was the first physician, the first he was kind of a demigod, immortal man-horse combination, right? Really strange thing. And that's why the maverick, that's why this thing stands out is so important about Chiron, because this strange thing that he is. He's human, he's immortal, he's part animal, he runs around on 4 hoofs, and he is very large. Should you encounter him somewhere on the astral, don't be surprised if you meet a creature 50 feet tall. He's not like the height of a normal horse or a guy riding a horse. But sounds like, the hoofprints sound like hoofprints. Hoof clops, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so this distinctiveness, this set apart from, this unique quality that Chiron always brings, is emphasized by the Mercury opposition, and that's saying, don't act so stupid. It is disturbing the extent to which people use acting stupid as a defense mechanism, as a way to not have to deal with things, as a way to not have to have the conversation, playing dumb. Also, Mercury Chiron says that you are more intelligent than you think, And that just because you weren't the kid that got A's in school and sat in the front of the class that the teacher liked does not mean that you did not possess an actual unique intelligence. Generally speaking, it's the people who don't sit in the front, who don't do that well, who are the more intelligent students. But the thing is, they don't necessarily seem that way because they don't spend their whole lives playing the game. Okay, so we've got Mercury, the Sun, and the Moon in Libra. Pallas Athene, the asteroid goddess of politics, wrote about her a couple of weeks ago. Politics, wisdom, protection, and the warrior goddess. Another warrior, Chiron Chiron was a warrior in the form that he trained some of the great heroes, many of the great heroes of the classical Greek era. This includes Heracles. It includes Achilles. It includes teaching medicine to Asclepius, the god of medicine. So you want to know where Chiron fits in the world of medicine? It is Chiron who taught medicine to the god of medicine. That's a mentor. That's how that works. And there were others along the way. Pallas Athene, also warrior, born in full armor from her daddy's head. Zeus had a headache, his head split open, and out comes Athena, ready to go. Okay, now, what is opposite this? What is opposite any major event is worth paying attention to. And this eclipse is exactly opposite Chiron and Eris. It is right at the midpoint, dividing it. Chiron's at 17 Aries, Eris is 24 Aries, the eclipse is 21 Libra. So it splits the opposite midpoint. It's like right on the opposite midpoint, splitting the difference between Chiron and Eris. Well, what's that about? That points to an event in 2025 and 2026, which is the conjunction of Chiron and Eris, one of many important conjunctions that are forthcoming. There are several. One is going to be in April, Jupiter conjunct Uranus, then Chiron conjunct Eris, then Saturn conjunct Neptune, also in Aries. Two of these conjunctions are in Aries. Let's stick to the main event, the one highlighted by this eclipse, which is Chiron conjunct Eris. This eclipse, those two objects are only 7 degrees apart. It seems like a lot. It's not a lot. It's a long cycle. The last time these two things were conjunct were 70-71. And that was the birth of the identity politics movement. That was the it's all about me and what I believe. That was the time in the history of American activism when the civil rights movement, which became the anti-war movement, then split up into, let's see if I can name most of them. It split up into the women's movement, the black rights movement, the Native American movement, the student movement, the ecology movement, the New Age movement. Everything just split apart, and it was like, well, I got mine and you got yours. I've got my issue and you've got your issue. Seeming to forget the importance during the Vietnam era of linking the issues. It's possible that Martin Luther King was shot for linking the issues because in a speech given April 4th, 1967, 1 year before the day of his assassination, he said, we must link the black poverty issue with the Vietnam War. They are one and the same thing. He lost much of his support for this. And then to the day, it is so creepy, to the day 1 year later, he was killed after a very famous speech about linking the issues. So that was a couple of years before Chiron conjunct Eris. It's certainly fun to not link the issues. It's certainly fun to think that your movement is more important than anyone else's movement. Your movement is going to save the world. But that is adharmic. That is not acting as if to hold the world together. So we're going to be in this stage of this increasing intensity of the Eris-Chiron conjunction building up through 2024. This is one of the reasons why 2024 is a pivotal. It is a transitional year. It is a transition from one era that we may not think is very distinct, the one that we're in now, through this transition area, this kind of brackish zone where one thing melds into the next. And then in 2025 is going to be obvious that we are in completely different times. And the human race is facing very big problems right now. There are all manner of political problems, economic problems, but no problem more serious than, at the moment, the entire Western world, which includes things like Russia, with a lot of influence in China and from China, is being run from Davos, Switzerland, and Geneva. The World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum are currently in charge of global affairs. They are calling the shots on global affairs, and they have been for a while. The WHO is making all kinds of moves where it is ready to define life on Earth as pandemic preparedness. Well, pandemic preparedness is traditionally used as a means of population control. This is not a good thing. This is not about being healthy. This is not about feeling better and getting back to work. This is about as many repeats of the lockdowns in March and April of 2020 as can be mustered. You think, well, I'm glad that's over. Well, that's like saying, I'm glad that rehearsal drill is over. Now I wonder what the real thing is going to be. And sadly, most people comply, most people participate, and most people either play dumb or don't think they're that smart, or shrug their shoulders, toss their hands out to the sides, palms up, say, what can I do? But what can I do? I don't know. I said to somebody older and presumably wiser than myself, someone I've known in the community a long time. She's almost 80 years old. She said, well, what can I do? I said, well, why don't you sit with that question for a while? Why don't you hang out in the face of that one? What can I do is a question, and if it doesn't have an answer, then it's not a real question. There's a lot else to say about this eclipse. I have said most of it before, but I think the fact that it points to and will come with an acceleration of matters related to the Chiron-Eris conjunction is the main thing to pay attention to right now. Now, with eclipses, remember a couple of things. As mentioned at the top of the program, you want to establish patterns and use the discontinuity factor to get rid of things that you don't want to have. Move on from them. Clean the closet. Separate yourself from the situation that you want to separate yourself from, and then establish the pattern. If you want to make a garden, do what you can to make a garden in the autumn. If you want to play more flute, then dust the thing off and take it to the flute tuner, or I don't know if there's flute tuners, and play the thing. Do the thing that you want to do. Establish the pattern by taking action. And finally, if you think of an eclipse as shooting the rapids, which is another way of thinking about a venturi, which is kind of like shooting the rapids by going through a narrow tube, make sure you point your canoe down the river. Don't go sideways. If you see a rock, use the paddle, push away from it, and keep going straight down the river. I have the forthcoming Scorpio astrology studio reading that is selling well. It's going to be magnificent, as they are. Libra is still available. All these readings are available with the Backstage Pass. That is to say, astrology studio readings. Also, we will soon be announcing the 2024 annual edition of Planet Waves somewhere in between, because this is an in-between point in history. All right, I've got an article for you. I've got the Planet Waves horoscope for you. Planet Waves approaching my 25th anniversary writing this whole thing. The website went up in 98, but I started the horoscope in 1995. Wait, no, so it's 25 years of the website as Planet Waves coming up this winter solstice, December the 21st. Planet Waves FM resumes tomorrow night. I've got a great show for you featuring Stefano Scolio, a toxicologist from Italy, whom I've known in various capacities for several years. And he's going to be telling us about how this article of faith, graphene, cannot exist as it is described chemically. All right, once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for doing your part to support the program. Share my work. Get yourself a subscription of some kind. Click like. Do something. Put your energy back in. I know that there are many, many thousands of people listening to the sound of my voice, relying on me, relying on this peaceful, consistent, sane, friendly Aquarius moon, Pisces sun, Cancer rising vibe that I bring to the work. Once again, thanks for joining me. Please stay in touch, and bye for now.